This is a tutorial on the Real Estate Transfer Disclosure Statement, CAR Form TDS, and I'm doing this for both the benefit of agents and sellers that need some guidance to fill this form out. It's 3 pages, and this form is required by state law. It's often done in conjunction with a seller property questionnaire, which is good, but the SPQ, the seller property questionnaire, is not required by law. It should be done because the seller is able to disclose more, which reduces their liability. But this is the form that's required by state law. If you're selling a property between 1 and 4 units, so single family home all the way up to a 4-unit property, you are almost certainly required to do a transfer disclosure statement. The only exception that I see is if you are a trustee, the home's held in a trust, you didn't own the home before it was in a trust, and you never occupied the property. But for all the people out there that bought a home and then put it in a trust, you are not exempt. For all the people that bought a home and it's in a corporation or LLC, you are not exempt. It doesn't matter if you never lived there, if you're flipping it, if it was just a rental, you are still obligated to fill this out. And sometimes people get nervous because they feel like they don't know the answer, and they're afraid of creating more liability. That's not how this form works. So I will alleviate your concerns as we go through this 3-page form quickly. Now we start here, and there are a couple check boxes, and this is for multifamily, duplex to fourplex, because sometimes, actually I should say most of the time, I'll see one of these forms done for the entire property. So if it's 4 units, there's just one done. And then if someone has to disclose something, they'll usually indicate which unit it pertains to. Now, in theory, so they have a box here. You can check if you want to do one for each unit individually. But generally speaking, you can do one for multiple units. You just have to be specific if you check a box yes and you make a disclosure about which unit you're referring to. We put the date of the form here. All right, now this just talks about disclosures that are going to be done in conjunction with this, because there are all sorts of seller disclosures that are required by state law, like the natural hazard disclosure. So it makes a mention of this, but it says, are there any substituted disclosures? Are there any disclosures that are being done in conjunction with what is required to be disclosed on the TDS? All right, don't let that confuse you. It's pretty simple. The answer is usually no. But if the seller is in possession of something, maybe the seller has an inspection that was done by a buyer that just fell out of escrow, the seller should check this box here and write property inspection dated, maybe a month ago or a week ago, whenever they got it, or a termite inspection that was done a week ago. So if the seller's in possession of something recent, they should check the box and add it on here. If not, just check no and move on. Don't get hung up on this first part. So many agents leave this blank and no one even notices. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just telling you that this is not a major section right here. Seller information. Okay. You're going to check the box is or is not occupying the property. Now, just because you check is not occupying the property, I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone check the box is not occupying the property and they leave all this blank, or they freak out. They don't want to finish disclosures and they say, can't you see? I didn't occupy the property. I have no idea. And that's fine. I'll explain, because it does not let you off the hook. You must do this form, but you're not incurring any additional liability. I'll show you why. Just bear with me here. Now, this form's a little weird. Again, it's a template created by the state of California. So it has kind of these random questions in here. But we're required, so we're just going to play this game. The subject property has the items checked below. So check the items it has. That's it. Don't overthink it. What do you know that it has? Now, what if it has something that you didn't know about and you didn't check the box? You're not going to get in trouble. You get in trouble in the world of disclosures by withholding, misrepresenting, or concealing information. If you don't do that, if you aren't dishonest, you're going to be okay. That's how you get in trouble. No one expects a seller to know everything about a property. No one expects you to have x-ray vision and know if there's a pinhole leak in the copper pipe behind the drywall. You do not get in trouble for that. You get in trouble for that which you know and you withheld or misrepresented. So you're going to check these boxes. And if you don't know, the answer is no, or you don't check the box. Now, sometimes people get hung up on the volt wiring. I mean, ask someone. And if you don't know, just say unknown. It's really that simple. Roof type, ask. Ask. If you don't know, you don't know. You can only disclose that which you know. That's how simple this is. It's a questionnaire. You go through it very quickly. It takes you a matter of minutes. Now, see even right here, to the best of your knowledge. They're not asking objectively in a vacuum, does such thing exist? Because if it exists and you didn't know, you're in trouble. They're saying, to your knowledge. Well, you either know or you don't. And if you don't know, then the answer is no. So is anything not in operating condition? You check yes or no. You should know that instantly. People get hung up on these questions, but I'm telling you right now, this is the key to filling this form out very quickly. It's a matter of, do you know? If you don't know, the answer is no. If yes, write it out because you need to disclose. It's very important. Do not withhold, conceal, or misrepresent information. And they tell you right here, if there's an issue, if something's not in operating condition and you check the box yes, write something in here. Just a brief description is sufficient. And then it says attach additional sheets if necessary. Now, if you do attach additional sheets, make sure those get initialed too. But we're going to initial page 1 and we move on. It kind of continues the same line of questioning. Are you, seller, aware of any significant defects or malfunctions in the following? And then you check yes or no, depending on if there are. Is there a defect? Is there something serious going on? And you check the box if there is, and then you describe what it is. Okay? And we're talking about major things, not little things, not a scratch, okay? Not a little crack. I mean, a foundation crack, yes. I mean, check the box. Or slab. I mean, that's serious. But we're talking about material facts. These are things, when they say significant, is this something that you as a buyer would want to know if you were purchasing a place? A buyer doesn't care if there's a scratch on the stucco unless it's significant. So just keep in mind, the more you disclose, the better. I personally, so when I sold my principal residence a few years ago, I came out with the most comprehensive disclosures to scare off the buyer during the inspection period, because that's when the buyer is very optimistic and that you're in the beginning of the escrow. You want to disclose as much as possible to protect yourself, but over disclosing is silly. So that's why, again, significant. I won't belabor this point. And then if you check yes and check any of these boxes, so you have an issue with the ceiling, you check the box. Water stain in bedroom ceiling suggests potential leak or something to that effect. Okay. All right. Now we move on, and this just talks about. You can read it. It just talks about different point of sale requirements on the property condition. Okay. This is just an advisory statement. Now we go down to another line of questions, okay? I'm going to go through these quickly. I'll let you know the ones that everyone seems to miss, okay? But this, again, this freaks a lot of sellers out because, well, I don't know if there's some substance that's an environmental hazard. I mean, and they get all worked up. The answer is, listen, if you don't know, the answer is no. They have yes or no. It's very simple. Not even multiple choice, just yes or no, true or false, okay? So you look at these questions and you ask yourself, do you know? If you say, I don't know, that's a no. Okay. Now let me tell you, so encroachments sometimes, so this is important because if there's something like a neighbor's tree limb sticking over your property line that's been a nuisance, you want to check the box yes. If you did any changes or alterations without a permit, check the box. I mean, check these boxes if they apply. And then what people get wrong all the time are these two. This one I see missed all the time. Not every community that has an HOA, or I should say communities that there are communities without an HOA that have CC&Rs. CC&Rs or the deed restrictions, and that could even be an easement. Does someone have an easement? If you don't know, check your title report. If you don't know, contact escrow and ask them to look at your title report. Ask your agent to contact escrow. HOA, people forget about that. Common area. If you check the box that you're in an HOA and you check no here, it means you weren't paying attention, because an HOA by nature has common area. So these should always match, 13 and 14. Just asking these questions. If you know about it, yes. If you don't know, then no. If you answered yes, write it out. It can be just one sentence, and then you can put at the very end of whatever you disclose, more information available upon request. And that's good for liability as well, because not only have you given an explanation, but you've said that you're willing to even furnish more information upon request. So if the buyer doesn't request and then they have an issue after escrow, you say, look, not only did I disclose it properly in this transfer disclosure statement, but I also offered to furnish you more. In fact, I have so much information. I have hours, pages. I can bore you to death with information on this, but you never asked, did you? You were careless. It's not my fault. I'm just telling you, post escrow, how these things unfold. I've seen it countless times. All right. Now, this is another point I want to bring up. This is about smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, and strapping your water heater. I see investors that just tell sellers to, that they're going to waive it or don't bother. The home's a wreck, we're going to demo it. A seller should always, I used to sell bank-owned properties, and these things were uninhabitable. But guess what? We always made sure there's a carbon monoxide detector, smoke detector, and the water heater was strapped. Because even if someone's in there doing work, they're injured, something happens, the seller, you're in big trouble. This is an obligation between the seller and the state to have these detectors and the water heater strapped done. This is not up to the buyer to say, don't worry about it, I don't need it, no one's going to inhabit the property while we're remodeling it. It's not up to the buyer. It has nothing to do with the buyer. It's an obligation between the seller and the state. You do not want to sell property unless you have carbon monoxide detectors, smoke detectors, and the water heater braced. It's reminding you here, but I see all sorts of paperwork where they're disregarding that. That's very bad. All right. All right, seller signs. Buyer only initials. All right, now for the agents here. Now listen, if you're an agent, you're required to do a visual inspection and make a statement about any material facts that you visually observe. Material fact being defined as something that is significant enough to potentially change the buyer's mind if they decide to proceed. So what's a big deal? A scratch on the wood floor? No. A crack in the foundation? Yes. Scratch on the cabinet or crack in the porcelain in the bathroom? No, that's not significant. Material fact would be something like potential leak in the wall, potential slumping on you notice something where the home is uneven. That could be a structural thing. Maybe there's liquefaction. Maybe there's something significant where it's going to be a big nuisance and the buyer's going to be very unhappy because the buyer's going to say, had I known, I would have never purchased it. So you as an agent, you're not expected to be some sort of professional inspector, but you are expected to make a visual assessment about something serious, a potential problem. You can't just keep your mouth shut. There's this AVID form. My brokerage does not require it because it's too comprehensive for most properties, and agents just fill it out with nonsense. Oh, I observed a chip on a tile in the corner. Okay, so what? That is not significant, not a material fact. Now, if you go in a home that has a bunch of issues, major fixer or something, do an AVID. I'm not saying don't do it, but we don't require it. Because the TDS is handy and allows you as an agent to fill out what you visually observe. So you can write, if it's one thing that you see, hey, I see water damage. Hey, I saw a mold in the bathroom on one of the walls. I saw that there's a leak or whatever you need to disclose. The HVAC looked inoperable. Recommend inspection. You can write it here. You don't need the whole AVID. You can write it here. If the home has no material facts worth disclosing, if you're comfortable saying that you did a visual inspection and there was nothing material enough worth mentioning to the buyer, check the box right here. No items for disclosure. But it's good to mention any concerns here. This should be enough space. And if it's not, then do an avid. So you got 3 options here. Nothing worth mentioning, the short summary, or long form version. And then you got to sign. And there's one for each agent. This must be done by the agent, period. Okay. Guess what? We're already at page 3 of 3. The parties sign again at the bottom. I should say the seller. And, oh yeah, parties, seller and buyer. And then both agents. So everyone's signing. And the agents are signing twice on page 3 of 3. There it is. That's the TDS required by state law. If you think there's an exemption I didn't mention, go ahead and put it in the comment. But I'm telling you that almost always people are required, and they have these stories. Well, it's been an LLC. We never saw it. We're an out-of-state investor. It doesn't matter. You're required. But it's nothing you should be afraid of. All right. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Thank you for watching.